The Resto Shaman is one of the most important healers in Pandaria. You have an AoE Blessing of Freedom that's basically mandatory in some fights and arguably the best raid healing in the game. On top of that, they are very simple to play and you are more mobile than other classes, so if the tank dies for pulling too fast, that's because you suck. For the talents, remember, you can now change your talents without respeccing. So if you feel that you are not gonna need a talent for a boss, change it to something else. If you are in doubt, there is nothing wrong with going to Warcraft logs and taking a look at what the top healers are doing. You can sometimes get a big difference in Pandaria just by swapping one talent. However, let me show you the basics. First row is the defensive cooldowns and Astral Shift is the better one, not even close. 40% damage reduction for 6 seconds, easy peasy. The next row is a utility row. You got two options, okay? Earth Grab is an AoE root and Windwalk Totem is an AoE Blessing of Freedom. This breaks roots, slows, all that stuff. And as you guys know, there is a lot of movement in the modern expansions. You gotta move all the time, so if a DPS or a healer or a tank gets slowed, even if it is not a big deal, it will reduce their uptime. So in a way, Windwalk Totem is damage and healing. In any fight that you can remotely conceive that you are gonna get slowed or rooted at one point, Windwalk Totem every single time. Okay, for the next one, we're gonna take Call of the Elements almost every time because Windwalk Totem, we can reset it with that. It will reset all the cooldowns. You can, for example, take Totemic Projection in some fights where you need to reliably place totems near the tanks. It is very, very situational. You are gonna know if you know the fight. Every other time, we're gonna go for Call of the Elements. And then we are gonna go for Ancestral Swiftness. Your next healing spell is gonna be instant. And you also get 5% haste, which is pretty neat, I guess. But Ancestral Swiftness is gonna be an emergency heal. There is all your fat heals, your greater healing wave, your chain heal even, or most likely, your most common is gonna be probably Healing Rain, 2.5 second cast, right? If the raid is in trouble, you pop it and you drop it instantly and it is your #1 lifeline. However, if the fight is gonna be very long, or if you're farming dungeons or something like that, you should go for Echo of the Elements. It is basically Wind Fury for healing. It sounds stupid, but it's basically that. You get a chance of getting the heal doubled. And that is pretty handy when mana efficiency is a concern. Otherwise, if you're going to a fight that's pretty hard, I would almost always take Ancestral Swiftness, but Echo of the Elements, it does have a place, it does have a use in some situations. Then we are gonna take Rushing Streams. This will make our Healing Totem AoE again. They changed the Healing Totem to not be, it was a single target totem basically in Pandaria, but with this thing it's gonna be a 3 target totem. It's like not a constant AoE anymore, it just drops a bigger heal but to 3 people. It is still an extremely mana efficient totem and we are gonna use it pretty much all the time with or without this talent. However, there are scenarios where conductivity makes sense. When you cast Healing Wave or Greater Healing Wave or Healing Source or Chain Heal, basically every time you heal, you can extend your duration of Healing Rain. Healing Rain is a very expensive AoE heal, very expensive, and it is a fat heal. It is a huge heal. So what this is free mana. And it is very good for healing intensive fights because when you keep Healing Rain up the entire time, right? That means you can focus on spamming heals instead of keeping the Healing Rain up. So it will also give you some extra output, but the main thing is mana efficiency. If you feel you're gonna be crunching for mana really hard, if you're doing an AoE fight and you cannot keep up with the mana that you need to heal through that fight, conductivity makes a lot more sense. Most of the time though, I would say 90% of the time, Rushing Streams is the way to go. Then we're gonna take Primal Elementalist. This is the only talent that ever works, okay? No, ignore these others, okay? This is by far the best talent, it's not even close. I am gonna make a macro that gives you the buff when you pop it and you summon the totem, everything in one button, right? But this is basically a fat defensive cooldown. You take 20% less damage and you get with your Fire Elemental 20% extra healing. Do you got any idea how huge that is? And we can also reduce the cooldown of the fire elemental totem. So you get a really good amount of uptime on the elemental totem. So look at this talent like 20% extra healing, because that's what it is. And 20% extra healing is a lot of value. It also doesn't help that the other two talents are kinda worthless. Now for the glyphs, we're gonna take the fire elemental totem because it reduces the cooldown in half, and like I said, 20% extra healing. That is a huge buff and we need it. Then for the other glyph, we are gonna take the glyph of healing stream. Very simple, right here. 10% less magical damage taken. Yes, there are some fights where you do not have magical damage. That's very rare, but every other time 10% reduced damage is freaking huge. So this is going. And for the last glyph, we are gonna take the glyph of Riptide. Now Riptide is a complex spell. It has an initial burst of healing, it's an instant spell, and then it puts a hot on you. It's like a regrowth, but instant, right? With this glyph, we are basically gonna turn Riptide from a regrowth into a normal flat hot, a normal rejuvenation. Yes, we are gonna take the druid's job, but why would you do this? You are sacrificing a part of the heal, right? First of all, when you chain heal a target that has Riptide on it, it heals for 30% more. And remember, like, chain heal is calculated on the first cast and then it bounces, so you do 30% for the entire chain heal. That's a lot of healing. And also, yes, this is not something that you can do all the time, especially early on because of mana problems, but you can blanket the entire raid on Riptides and it actually heals for a crap ton. But a third and final reason, I guess, that you wanna use this glyph is that you wanna keep Riptide on both the tanks, right? Like, very similar to the druid, we are trying to keep a baseline of healing, a base load of healing into the tanks. Usually you have 2 tanks in a fight, most fights got 2 tanks, and you wanna keep Riptide on both and it makes it a little easier. I guess, oh my god, I guess another fourth reason you wanna take this glyph is that whenever you gotta move and you don't wanna pop a cooldown, you can also just keep dropping Riptides when you move, right? Like, that's another way of increasing your uptime. So yes, we are sacrificing some healing, but this glyph is really good. Just trust me on this. For the minor glyphs, they all kinda suck. We're gonna take the glyph of Deluge, so that way our chain heal doesn't look like a gigantic ray of pee anymore. They are all cosmetic, okay? It doesn't matter. Your stat priority is gonna be very simple. First, we're gonna go for Spirit for mana regen. Mana regen is life. If you got Water Shield on you, you generate 50% of your mana regen in combat. No matter how much you can pump, if you do not have mana regen, you are gonna go in a second. Also, Mana Tide, it scales off your spirit. So look at yourself like a mana battery. The more spirit you have, the more useful you are to your raid. I would reforge everything I can into spirit. The next stat you're gonna be taking is gonna be intellect. Intellect is a base stat in all your gear, so if you're going for caster gear, one way or another you're gonna have intellect on it. But yes, intellect is very good. Then we can go for haste. If you can hit any of these caps that I'm gonna put on screen right here, do not go for outside the cap, that is worthless. You gotta aim for exactly those caps. And after that we go to crit. And after that finally we go to mastery. The shaman mastery is pretty freaking worthless. It gives you extra healing on low HP targets. Now that sounds kinda good, right? Well, the problem with that mastery is that it doesn't really work with the role of a Resto Shaman. Don't get me wrong, mastery will help. Mastery will definitely help. But a shaman is a raid healer. As a raid healer, you're gonna keep the raid up all the time. And yes, there is gonna be times, obviously, when people are low HP, but 90% of the time, you are gonna be healing people that are kinda like half HP or more. So you get very little value from this mastery. Also, the scaling kinda sucks. Now, your job is very simple. I am gonna leave a mouse over macro in the Discord so you can pick it up and make a mouse over of every single ability in the game. You wanna make a mouse over for every heal, but we are gonna put Earth Shield in one of the tanks. Earth Shield is a great heal and it is pretty much free mana wise. You always gonna have Earth Shield on one target. Then you are gonna keep Riptide on both of the tanks as well. That's a nice hot that's gonna keep them up. I heavily recommend you enable tank frames for that. Any healer needs tank frames, even a raid healer. Don't forget, guys, you also gotta keep Earth Living Weapon on your weapon at all times, and you gotta keep Water Shield on you at all times. I am gonna leave 2 different Wicoras in the Discord for that, so you can be reminded when you're missing it to recharge it. And that's important because Earth Living Weapon in Pandaria is gonna give you Unleash Elements. Unleash Elements is a busted as hell heal. It is another instant heal and it is extremely mana efficient, very powerful. It is like about a normal healing wave worth of damage, a little less, but it is instant and it is twice as mana efficient. Then I am gonna drop a Wicora in the Discord that is gonna remind you to do a Healing Stream Totem on cooldown. Healing Stream is an amazing heal, also very efficient. There is no reason it shouldn't be up at all times. After that, what you do is gonna change depending on the fight. Shamans are at their strongest when they are healing more than 5 people at the same time. And if those people are not gonna move, that is even better because Healing Rain is one of the best heals in the game. A very common misconception in Pandaria is that Healing Rain is an inefficient heal. And yes, if you are not healing a lot of people, it is inefficient, but if you get decent tap time on it and you get a bunch of people on it, it is arguably the best freaking heal in the game. It has a cap at 6 people and that's a soft cap. It still will heal everybody. Not even the freaking druid can do that. But even then, there is yet another thing that makes Healing Rain the best freaking heal in the game. And that is Unleash Elements. Once again, because yes, Unleash Elements is an instant heal, but every time you cast it at the same time, it will give your next heal 30% extra healing. It used to be in Cataclysm that it only applied to direct heals, things like Healing Surge or Chain Heal, but now it also works with Healing Rain. And that freaking means that your biggest, most expensive heal in AoE is gonna heal for 30% more. That's right, you take the most powerful heal in the game and you make it 30% better and more efficient. And of course, because of that, you wanna do Unleash Elements on cooldown whenever you can, and if you can feasibly heal at least 3 people with that heal that are gonna be taking damage, you should absolutely do a Healing Rain every single time you can. There is gonna be scenarios where you cannot do it, yes, but any scenario at all where it kinda makes sense to drop an AoE heal, if you can do a Unleash Elements and a Healing Rain, you're gonna freaking pump and you are gonna be pretty mana efficient. As a matter of fact, if there is a mechanic that forces people to stack in a certain place, you wanna preemptively drop a Healing Rain in that place. And that way you can get value before any other healer can. You are a bit of a jerk, yes, but your DPSers and your tanks are gonna love you. You wanna snipe that heal before the damage happens, guys. Healing Rain has a pretty long cast time, okay? So if you are not predicting where people are gonna go, or God forbid, if you drop it on a place that people are gonna leave, that is a big problem. It is one of those spells that gets better the more you understand a fight. That is gonna be a reoccurring theme for the Resto Shaman for sure. Okay, we are doing Healing Rain where we can, and after that something you always wanna do as a filler is gonna be riptiding the tanks and chain healing the tanks so they get that extra 30% chain heal and you are healing the entire raid through the tanks. There are very few fights where a tank is taking damage and nobody else is taking damage. More often than not, even if everybody is full HP when you cast it, by the time it goes off, you are gonna heal somebody. And if you got the Riptide bonus, chain heal is actually a really good heal. What you wanna do is Riptide in both tanks, and then you heal one tank, and then you heal the other tank, and then you Riptide one again, and then you Riptide the other again. You never wanna delete a Riptide too early from a tank, that's a waste of mana, obviously. You want the Riptide to go for as long as possible, but doing a Riptide into chain heal, it is always more efficient than waiting for the entire Riptide to go through and healing somebody else with chain heal. You always wanna chain heal somebody with Riptide on them. If you think 3 people are gonna die really quickly, it is better to just throw 3 Riptides on them and then just chain healing the first person you Riptided. Or maybe Healing Surge, it is an emergency heal and it is kinda crappy, but if you gotta do it fast, you gotta do it fast and Healing Surge is okay. A really cool thing about Healing Surge is that it gets a lot of free crit, because when you do Riptide or Healing Rain or Chain Heal, you get a buff called Tidal Waves, and Tidal Waves gives you like 30% crit on it or something like that. So you get a fat crit on it almost every time, and if you get a crit, you get Ancestral Vigor, right? So you can make a DPSer pretty tanky for a minute, and that could save their life. So Healing Surge does have a place in your rotation, just not a very good one, not a very important one. It's just an emergency and that's it. If you are watching this after Throne of Thunder and you can reforge every freaking thing to Spirit, caking your entire raid on Riptides is not a terrible idea sometimes. Doing like Healing Rain and Riptide spamming, it is not that bad. It can work. The problem is mana, but the more mana you get. Actually, as a matter of fact, guys, your only limiting factor is mana. Imagine you have a shaman in blues that for some reason has infinite mana. That shaman is gonna absolutely destroy every other healer every time, even in blues. Of course, the problem is that there is no such thing, right? But mana is your limiting factor, and everything we do is to get more mana. Crit, spell power, those things are fine, those things are good, but mana is the thing we need the most. Now, in my opinion, shamans are only good at raid healing, and being a mana battery, also that. So much so that I think shaman for 10 man is not even that good. The shaman really shines on high AoE damage fights for a lot of people. And that means that if your raid leader tells you to heal the tank, you gotta recognize that something has gone awfully wrong. Yes, you always wanna keep Riptide on the tanks, you always wanna put Air Shield on one of the tanks, obviously, you wanna help out with your AoEs to heal the tanks, you wanna be chain healing the tanks, but if somebody tells you to focus heal the tank as a shaman, you are screwed. Your options are very limited. You can do Riptide and then do like 2 healing waves in a row and then Riptide again. Unleash elements, I guess you can do that. The truth of the matter is that in a raid that doesn't freaking suck, they are gonna take a different, more capable tank healer, something like a priest, to take care of that. Because if you're looking at the numbers, chain heal, just spamming chain heal is more efficient than any of your single target heals. So you freaking suck as a tank healer. You got good heals for the tank and you can help out the tank healer by healing the raid, but you can never be a full-time tank healer. That will never work. However, that's a great segue to talk about cooldowns, because there is one cooldown that is arguably a really freaking strong tank healing spell, and people do not see it as such, okay? Spirit Link Totem. What is this totem? First of all, the raid takes 10% less damage. That's pretty simple, right? Just a simple damage reduction. Your version of the dome a lot weaker, but also every second it evens out everybody's HP. Now this is huge. We established that we are the best AoE healer in the game. If the tank is taking a lot of damage, and every second the entire raid funnels him HP and we can heal the raid, we are basically turning raid healing into very concentrated tank healing. And actually, under certain ideal circumstances, like having the entire raid stacking up, you could very well be the best tank healer in the game for the duration of Spirit Link Totem. It is not for every situation, and if a tank healer, a proper tank healer, is blowing a cooldown, please do not use Spirit Link Totem. This is for when you gotta be the tank healer for whatever reason in a fight. Imagine it like this, okay? Imagine it like the tank is Goku and he's doing like the Genki Dama thing, you know, like he's making that big ball of pee in the sky, and everybody is like, the entire raid is like down there doing like, oh, and sending him HP, okay? That's how it works. It is disgustingly broken when you know how to use it. Now, going along with this AoE healer identity that we have, we also got Ascendance. Ascendance is a 3-minute cooldown that duplicates the heals you do into somebody else. So obviously you wanna burn this through a phase where there is a lot of heals and you gotta pump really hard. The best combo you can do is Ascendance into Unleash Elements, into Healing Rain, into Chain Heal. That is a lot of healing in a very short amount of time, and that's where you really truly shine and you destroy the healing meters. In a true AoE healing race, nothing, and I mean nothing, can beat a shaman. It is not even close. Until they run out of gas. then you have a problem, but before that, there is nothing that comes even close. Healing Tide is just a boom boom cooldown, you know, like an extra AoE heal to help out every 3 minutes. You should drop it on cooldown pretty much whenever there is a lot of damage. It is not that huge, but it will help a lot in an extensive AoE healing phase, something like that. So definitely, whenever it makes sense to drop it, you should drop it as soon as possible, get that cooldown going. And then we got Mana Tide. Mana Tide gives everybody spirit, scaling with your spirit, and that's why we take so much spirit ourselves. We are basically a mana battery, which is fine because we need all the mana we can get. Very clever class design actually. The Shaman is very mana starving, and the stats that give you mana also help the raid, so very good synergistic thing, right? That's why you always get a lot of spirit every single time. Whenever you're low on mana, you drop it, the entire raid gets mana, pretty simple. Don't forget your fire elemental, you wanna pop it every single time on cooldown. Your earth elemental, that's when you're taking a lot of damage, you can also drop it. Of course, the big one is the fire elemental, it gives you extra healing and the uptime is pretty good, but the earth elemental reduces your damage taken by 20%. That is a big amount of damage taken reduced, of course. Whenever you're taking a lot of damage, you pop it. I am gonna leave a macro for both in the Discord, so you can have it a little easier time popping both of those. But you wanna use your fire elemental on cooldown as soon as you can every single time. You could say, oh, I wanna drop it when I drop all my cooldowns. Yeah, but honestly, don't. Just take advantage of it whenever you can. And finally, I gotta talk about another cooldown that I don't quite like. Not because it's a bad cooldown, it's pretty cool, just because it is very annoying to use. And that's gonna be Spirit Walker's Grace, okay? For 15 seconds when you pop it, you can move and cast heals at the same time. Now that's great. The problem is, more often than not, you feel like you either wasted it or like you didn't pop it soon enough, and that's a problem. Now there is not a lot I can tell you on this. You gotta learn the fights. The more you learn every fight, and the more you learn when you're gonna have to move for an extended period of time, that's the tricky part. That's when you know to pop it. Now remember that Riptide, Earth Shield, Unleash elements, those are all instant as well. So if you gotta move for like say 2 globals, you can just do those and save this cooldown for later. I can tell you, more often than not, I regret not using it, so maybe you want to be a little more liberal on it before you master the fight, every single boss fight, just to get some practice in, some muscle memory in. It does not give haste anymore in MoP, so we are not going to use it as a healing cooldown. It doesn't do anything for you, it is just the movement, but it is a pretty good cooldown if you know how to use it, and that's the hard part. Now your meta gem is the Revitalizing Primal Diamond, your red gem is the Purified Imperial Amethyst, your yellow gem is the Misty Wild Jade, and your blue gem is gonna be the almighty 320 Spirit Gem. We do not stack a single gem anymore in MoP because the socket bonuses are actually good now. For your consumables, you can mess with intellect consumables later, or in a short fight you can, but in most situations the 300 spirit steamed crab surprise is gonna be the way to go, and for that same reason that we need spirit, we are gonna take the 1000 spirit, the flask of falling leaves. Now pre-potting is not a thing anymore in MoP, so the potion you're gonna go for is the mana potion, the master mana potion, and that's gonna do. Overall, the Resto Shaman is a very specialized healer. You make him do anything that doesn't involve pumping 25 people at the same time, and it kinda sucks. But when you put it in for what it's actually made for, it is a terrifying healer. It is the best freaking healer in the game. Pretty much any meta composition is gonna take at least one Resto Shaman, because even if they do not shine in half the fights, when you need an AoE healer, you really need a Resto Shaman. And that's always a great place to be. I am building the MoP library in our Discord like I did with Cataclysm. We're gonna drop all the macros and all the Wicoras in the MoP channel. We are building a comprehensive encyclopedia for every class and every spec. So go check out the Discord. We are gonna make a guide for every single spec in the game before launch. And subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.